Pay up or we'll level it. That's the furious demand the HOA leader hurled at me through the line, acting like she controlled my very existence. I can still picture myself there, dusted in wood shavings, gazing at the cabin I'd poured 2 years into reviving, my grandfather's century-old family retreat, and puzzling over how a total stranger could dare issue threats to bulldoze it. Next thing I knew, the sheriff pulled up with paperwork, timelines, and an emblem that seemed legit enough to shatter my world. They claimed I was on the hook for $65,000 in neighborhood dues tied to a community I didn't even reside in. Sure, I'm no millionaire, but I'm no fool. The whole mess reeked of abuse and deception. Drop a comment. What would your move have been if they'd pulled that on you? Sunlight from an October dawn filtered in through the oak-framed windows I'd labored over for months, polishing every glass panel and reapplying sealant from a batch I'd blended by hand. There I was in Grandpa's living room, with its revived hardwood floors and meticulously hand-repaired crown molding, the air carrying subtle hints of cedar and linseed oil. Every bit of grit, every cut, and every dollar from my historic preservation gigs had fueled this effort. Weekends melted away in sanding and varnishing. Nights slipped by beneath dim lamps as I eyeballed matches for the era's paint shades. Ever sunk your soul into a project this deep? I suspect you'd share the mix of fierce accomplishment and bone-deep weariness I carried. The place mirrored 1922 perfectly, the year Grandpa erected it, right down to the wrought iron hinges I'd hunted from scrap heaps spanning 3 counties. Red cedar shakes gleamed in the fall glow, faded to that ideal silvery patina earned only through endless mountain seasons. The rock chimney held echoes of the previous night's blaze, blended with the rich aroma of seasoned timber and a lingering whiff of pipe smoke from Grandpa's cherished briar, as if fused into the very plaster. Every corner murmured tales of shared meals and serene fireside hours, of Grandma's soft recitations to my dad in his boyhood days. This went beyond repair work. It was summoning our lineage from the brink of ruin. That's when the rapping sounded. Not the casual pat of a friendly face or the routine thud of a package drop, but the authoritative rap that knots your gut before you turn the knob. A solid, purposeful knock pierced the cabin's calm. Peering through the antique panes, I spotted a deputy in uniform, clutching a folder with exact poise. "Noah Grant?" The sheriff inquired in a level tone. "Service of court documents on this address, plus an urgent payment requirement." My fingers, abruptly leaden, accepted the packet. The contents were sharp-edged, bureaucratic, and utterly bewildering. Pine Ridge Homeowners Association sought $65,000 in backdated neighborhood enhancement charges for my unpermitted vintage dwelling. 65 grand, more than my earnings over the last year and a half lumped together. The cutoff was 1 week out, with penalties etched in stark caps. Non-payment triggers the HOA's option to raise the building for public welfare reasons. "This has to be an error," I muttered, eyes locked on the sheet. It bore an air of authenticity, yet a nagging unease clung to it. This place isn't under any HOA umbrella. It's family-held since the 20s, on ancestral acreage beyond any subdivision's edge. The sheriff offered a neutral lift of his shoulders. "My role's just delivery, buddy. Hash it with the HOA if you've got gripes." He slid over a card with the leader's details. "Best of luck." As his patrol car vanished along the dirt lane, I lingered on the porch Grandpa had hammered together himself, gripping sheets that imperiled all my labor of love. The dawn's promise of fulfillment had twisted into the vertigo of teetering on a precipice, my visions tumbling into the abyss. 20 minutes on, my cell vibrated sharply against the wood, cutting the stillness. A poised, assured woman identified as Claudine Renshaw, head of Pine Ridge HOA. Her delivery echoed the sheriff's authoritative sheen from earlier. "Mr. Grant, word reached me of the summons you got today, so I thought I'd ring to sort out any mix-ups." I waved the forms still gripped in my fist. "Confused doesn't cover it. This cabin stood apart from any association forever. Grandpa raised it in 1922, ages before any building boom hit these hills." Claudine kept her sympathy dialed in as she sketched an intricate diagram. "I get the mix-up entirely, Mr. Grant. Over time, as our area expanded, so did the lines. What you got there is the latest Pine Ridge Zone outline, ratified by the county just last year. Per her rundown, my spot nestled dead center in a highlighted swath marked as Pine Ridge HOA territory. But that defied logic. I'd pored over deeds and plats before lifting a hammer, and all sources placed the cabin on isolated turf clear of any sprawl. This enhancement levy is a fresh program we rolled out recently, Claudine pressed on, her inflection shifting to that patient cadence reserved for simplifying knots to the uninitiated. Sites like yours demand extra handling for upkeep on paths, power lines, and safety protocols. The pricing aims to keep these gems from straining shared resources. She praised the cabin's revival with evident warmth. And you've crafted something stunning. It'd be tragic if red tape snagged such vital local legacy. Her phrasing prompted a harder squint at the files. The county emblem struck me as faintly skewed, the hues overly vivid, the lettering mismatched from standard forms I'd handled. The postmark seemed hastily inked, maybe even tacked on later. Closer inspection revealed premium stock, not the usual thin county stock. Could you share the source files on these line shifts? I ventured, steadying my pitch. I'd value knowing precisely when this land joined your domain. A brief hush hung on the connection. Absolutely naturally. The county houses all that. My aide can forward the file codes. Her pace edged up a notch. What counts most is wrapping this up smooth and swift. No soul wants a gem like your overhaul tangled in court mess. Her spin on court mess implied it'd sting plenty. I pondered how many fellow owners had fielded such outreach, how many had forked over cash to dodge the hassle. Thanks for reaching out, I replied, but I'll dig deeper before committing funds. This clashes with my records on the lines, and 65,000's no small hit for my trade. Claudine's edge sharpened, barely noticeable. I see where you're coming from, Mr. Grant. Due diligence makes sense. Bear in mind the cutoff's ironclad, and the county doesn't play around with these shared upkeep mandates. We've seen challengers push back on these levies, and it seldom pans out for them. Once she clicked off, I slumped in the space that now rang hollow, less haven than bullseye. The hush that soothed me before weighed like menace. Beyond the panes, stray oak foliage skittered the deck in the fall gusts, their brittle scrape akin to hushed alerts. Dusk softer, chillier shades etched the details I'd toiled to reclaim. The sill I'd smoothed by hand over endless shifts. The planks I'd buffed board at a time. The lintel bearing Grandpa's 1923 monogram. All facets that could crumble to dust in days if I couldn't pierce this fog. I hadn't sunk 2 years into resurrection to yield 65 grand to folks flashing shaky proof. A foul play brewed here, and I'd unearth it. The sheets fluttered as fall breezes snaked the threshold, bearing crisp foliage tang. 1 week to decode this ploy, or Grandpa's legacy and my revival would lie in heaps. I'd pushed this far, without surrender. Still, I sensed safeguarding this haven would call for a fiercer, unyielding revival than I'd ever braced for. This round, it wasn't timber and rock on the line. I'd resurrect candor from the roots. Call it a quirky neighborhood initiation. I headed direct to the downtown county archives, under buzzing fluorescence. If Claudine staked her grab on HOA turf, evidence had to lurk in the stacks. True line redraws demand inks, attesters, and open forums. The registry hummed with activity, stamps thudding, files rustling, stale brew scenting steel cabinets. I approached the counter, where a fatigued attendant marked deeds in rote beats. Looking into Pine Ridge Zone tweaks, I said, focus on shifts hitting spots off Maple Creek Road. Her hand paused mid-press, tired gaze lifting. Pine Ridge, HOA, she breathed low. You're hardly the pioneer sniffing out their odd line games. That hooked me sharp. What sort of line games? Lately, web maps clash with our physical stacks, she noted, darting to the rear stacks. She emerged hauling a thick ledger crammed with crease charts, yellowed memos, and vintage plats from 1975. The initial Pine Ridge sketch aligned with my recall, 2 miles distant, crisp edges halting well shy of Maple Creek Road. Now the online version, she added, swiveling the display my way. Spot the glitch? The screen traced HOA frontiers inching forth, engulfing sites never charted in the blueprint. My cabin pulsed crimson amid the fresh claim. Who rubber-stamped these phantom reaches? Her demeanor soured. They slipped in as clerical tweaks, no fanfare. No sessions, no alerts, just stealthy uploads. Still, I clocked 3 hours, flipping folios and sketching a chronology. The trend shown plain, every quarter or so, fresh parcels eased into Pine Ridge sway, always aged or handed down holds. The attendant noted others had traipsed in with parallel probes, though most slunk out deflated post-digital peak. I photocopied all I could snag, the 1975 founding dock with firm perimeters, 80s overviews confirming Grandpa's outpost solitude, and tweak filings that grew fishier under scrutiny. Time-stamps jumbled. Inks looked duplicated over originals. Folks had hustled to recast land lore, but they'd skimped on the cleanup. By midday, I craved a land sage beyond desk drones. Enter Helen Moritz. The attendant had flagged her as a keeper of Dawn-era schemes. Helen dwelled in a tidy bungalow ringed by trim plots. 82 and deliberate in stride, she bore the mark of decades stewarding scrolls. She swung the door pre my intro. The Grant lad, she noted. Words out on your cabin comeback. Inside love. We've matters to hash. Her parlor evoked an archived nook. Walls traced agrarian roots morphing to tract homes across eras, annotated with jot notes on builds and swaps. She'd chronicled flux since before queries arose. County keeper for 37 turns, she launched, sinking into her seat. I inked the debut Pine Ridge packed in 75. Your kin's cabin stayed clear. She prodded a weathered 80 flyover snap. Note your grandpa's hold. Solo. Pine Ridge was mere ink visions then. So how's Claudine staking claim? Helen's chin set. 'Cause I slipped big. She veered to a groaning oak chest. 5 years prior, Claudine crashed county sessions. She fished out a stout dossier, dropping it with a puff of dust betwixt us. Convinced me to okay her tweaks. Claimed sinking screens to ancients. I bought it. The stack brimmed with autograph sheets and scrawls from Helen. Each Pine Ridge frontier crept over pristine turf. Linked, they wove a covert creep. Helen paraded proof after proof where she'd unwittingly greenlit sprawls. Claudine framed each as mundane clerical polish, insisting the net needed aligning with your. Yet pitting Helen's marks against county filings exposed a grim rhythm. Select shifts hit records, others lingered as footholds for later grabs. I missed the sting till kin lost roofs. Helen voiced. The Yamasas forfeited their spread. Kowalski's dumped low. 3 clans vanished in 5 spins. She locked eyes, remorse plain. Claudine stalked heirloom sites, where folks leaned on lore over ledgers, where bonds trumped balances. Got the prime docs yet? Helen's lips quirked. Sweetheart, I curated 37 years. Naturally, duplicate stayed. She tugged another bin, hoisting a steel case. My man, the land measurer, preached, hoard old inks, they might shield a fact left bare. Within nestled crisp grids, pen turf tales, and sepia shots from the 40s. The cash outright debunked Claudine's flaunted folios. The gauge man's metrics rang exact, expert, and flatly at odds with live web lines. He'd etched every ridge, stream twist, and stake with the fidelity born of boots-on-dirt probes. These mark the closest HOA patch a mile yonder, Helen affirmed. Claudine forged frontiers via clerical dodges, dodging open vetting. How many she snared? 6 clans I track. Likely beyond, Helen weighed, tone laden with regret. She towed lawful edges, even amid bogus bonds. Would you speak on the true charts and bogus tweaks you okayed? Helen straightened. 5 years I've craved that nudge. I faltered once, but I won't let Claudine wreck another line cause of my lapse. Wheeling back under a fraying vault, my mind looped. No longer solo cabin stakes. This was creeping plunder of roots, a felony sown from forms and pilfered clout. Claudine had rigged a full rig for turf theft via desk jockeying, zeroing on kin who prized recalls over regs. She'd banked on types like Helen swallowing yarns, and souls like mine coughing fees over feud. Claudine botched one key bet. She tangled with a reviver, and revival schools you. Verity sprouts from the first frame. Now I clutched Pine Ridge's honest outlines. 7 days shrank to 6. Odd how local lines flip faster than forecasts. Time to swap silent stacks for sharp counters. Rain kicked a near witching hour, drumming the shakes like impatient taps. Sleep evaded, tangled in Helen's proofs and Claudine's phantom frontiers. 6 days lingered, armed with sheets that might buckle under her paper empire. Beams swept the drapes, tires crunched my lane. This late, this wet, no soul belonged. I shrugged into my shell and cracked the entry to face the caller haloed in downpour glare. The figure eased from his rig, gait hinting at frames and gales weathered. 40s-ish in a battered shell, he bore a builder's steady poise. He glanced up, palm raised in half hail, half regret. Noah Grant. His timbre sliced the squall, gentle yet firm. Name's Grant Lewis. We got a chew on Claudine Renshaw and her hits on types like us. The tag rang for my sleuthing. Grant Lewis once engineered Pine Ridge builds, but this sodden midnight trek pegged him more fugitive than fixture. Porchway I beckoned. Dry chat here. He mounted slow, runoff sheeting his garb. Nigh, I clocked where in his gaze and fidget in his grip. Caught wind of your levy, he stated blunt. 65 large indues. I laid the groundwork that props him. That landed like a gut punch. You crewed Pine Ridge? Civil draftsman. Claudine tapped me 3 years gone to gauge lanes for her stretch. Figured I was plotting true bloom. He braced the rail. Wound up, drafting her turf heist map. The gale swelled till roar merged to endless surge, gust and pour entwined. Grant unclasped a storm-scarred pouch, drawing a shielded slate. Here he urged, thumbing alive scans of evals. The true cuts, not Claudine's Dr. Dumps. His stare held mine. Your hold wants zilch upgrades. Lanes solid, lines self-reliant. Zero drag. Every levee hook's a fib. A knot in my ribs eased. I geared to probe his risk in spilling, but Grant beat me, chin clenching. Claudine's surging wild, 12 more holds, my kin's plot included. I poked her blueprint, she hissed. No draftsman bucking last local. He thrust the slate over. Deeper. Claudine links with a crew snapping distressed vintage pads cheap, then hawking to builders once owners fold under levees. Lightning ghosted the ridges, limbing the drenched, woods an instant air fade. Fleeting, I glimpsed Claudine's vision, not legacy layers, but yield slabs masked in safeguard talk. Got a query, I said. You'll attest to your no? Grant's gnawed lock solid. Crave the prod. I forged this snarl, trusting Claudine. Fix hour struck. Dawn broke crisp, ushering a ring that flipped the board. I'd mulled Grant's drafts over brew when my line trilled. Mr. Grant, Aaron Keene speaking, deeds counsel versed in HOA scraps. Helen Moritz, relayed your line. Aaron's even-keeled bespoke seasons in turf law. Helen flagged your Pine Ridge snag, and I'd lend a hand. I've stacked a dossier on Claudine Renshaw these 2 years. Your scraps could seal her. We set a noon huddle at a town cafe. Aaron proved spot on my hopes. 30s keen-sighted, hauling a kit screaming turf right zeal. Bright side, you're in company, he noted, fanning files table wide. I back for more clans Claudine clipped. Dark side, she hugs lawful rails, bogus or not. He unrolled a 7-year thread of her plays. The beat was calculated. Scout air holds, fake sway via desk twists, slap levies sparking fire sales, grease swaps to builder mates. So proof path? Aaron's grin gleamed. Flip her exactness on her. She trails every step, mails, ally packs, yield logs. Paired with Grant specs and Helen's your. We'll nail her levy web as sham. He fished a docket wheel, jabbing a crimson loop. County plot board convenes next Tuesday. Claudine's slated to pitch a sprawl-grabbing 15 more pads. If we drop our stack there, we halt her creep, and maybe void all prior line fiddles. That spark it when gears mesh. My role? Hoard all, rings, sheets, neighbor yarns. And never yield coin. That cedes her grip on your ground. Strolling to my rig, I tasted true surge since the deputy's thud moons back. At last, no lone scrap. Proof rolled, mates primed. Stakes dwarfing my roof or any lone peak. 5 days to her mark. But I tallied not to defeat. I tallied to Claudine Renshaw's lesson. Some revivals mend beyond plank and pebble. Tuesday dawned with uplift. Aaron buzzed. Our stack slot at the county plot board cleared for Thursday Eve. We'd claim half an hour to lay Hellinger bonds, grant spec breakdowns, and my chronicle of Claudine's line ploys. But scarce seconds post-hang-up, elation ebbed. Claudine Renshaw idled in my forecourt, her chrome hack slicing like a claim peg. This pass, backup trailed. A 20-something lad rode shotgun, rig on thighs, keys flying. From my galley overlook, I tracked her sweeps at my hold, flagging traits in a drawn-out wire chat. When she neared my stoop at last, her vibe had iced over. No more chummy chief. This cut with glacial snap. Mr. Grant, she launched, skipping niceties. Here to float one last shot at a clean wrap. Pine Ridge HOA / your upkeep levy to 45 grand if you settle by morrow noon. I prop the jam. Kind cut, but your sway over my turf still rings hollow to me. Her smirk sliced diamond. You'll deem our reach broader than you grasp. Meet Tyler, my tech advisor. Tyler clocked mid-20s, clad in pricey offhand duds hinting old cash. His taps dance pro, gaze sparking with delight in unraveling others' tangles. Tyler's run a full digital probe on pads in our grown zone. Claudine rolled on. Tyler pivoted the slab my way, unveiling tiered digs on turf stats. Plots and forecasts crammed the pane, zeroed on every lot lining Maple Creek Road. Your hold's rated worth spikes past zone norms, Tyler boomed sure. That spawns what we term system strain on neighbor sites. The breakdown shone slick, stamped with county marks and form flair, but a sour note hummed. Figures too tidy, links too seamless, verdicts too pat with Claudine's aims. Data origin? I pressed. Tyler's face twitched. County vaults. All open intel, pulled legit via channels. I clocked the eval's time tag. Spun last dusk, post county shut. Meant either night owl vault keys or claims stretched thin. Slick setup, I allowed flat. Care to name the county wing granting live rating code peaks? Claudine cut Tyler's wind. Keybit Mr. Grant. Our tech probe backs the levy frame we've set. She passed a slate flashing a turf stewardship site. Pro-snapped vintage pads stress for Swift. Snag-free air swaps. Each mirrored mine. Loan legacy, ripe for builder flips, cloaked in safeguard. One query I lobbed. How many owners bit on these builder links? A handful of kin found our steer aid useful, Claudine glided. Life hits can snag vintage upkeep, especially when zone mandates pinch purses. Tyler's rig pinged alert. He eyed then snapped it, but not ere I glimpsed a turf plot app with my hold crimson, ringed in yield flags. Thanks for the float, I said, but I'll grind your sway bids harder. Claudine's veil dipped, bearing steel beneath. Your call, sure. Just clock, Claudine intoned level. The mark holds fast, and county hits zone rules full bore. Post their exit, I pinged Aaron pronto. Claudine rolled up with a tech, was touting county stats, propping their levy web. Digital fiddle, Aaron shot sans pause. They whip pro facades from open scraps, then pawn as state-stamped evals. That eve, Grant wheeled in with Game Turner. I cracked the county's true rating vault, he said, splaying Prince kitchen flat. Claudine's tech ace has rigged rating codes, steady to puff strain calcs. Live county cuts spun a flipped yarn. My hold craved nil system lifts, dragged no zone load, and sat firm beyond any true HOA pale. Plus, Grant piled on. Snagged mail swaps twixt Claudine and Tyler's fiddle firm. They're forging a full roster of soft-touch owners ripe for levy squeeze. He fanned printed threads, hashing air hunts and prime levy tiers for push sales. The notes laid bare methodical picks of kin apt to buckle under shock bills. This ain't mere scam, I clocked, it's hunt. Spot on. And Tyler's outfits run this on HOAs over 3 shires. So that night, Claudine beamed on TownTube. Hawking Pine Ridge HOAs vowed a guard zone roots. She flowed on wedding revival zeal to system needs, framing as sage guide, shielding values and vibe. Catching her act, I pegged Claudine's ploy. No lone turf snatch. She wove crowd cheer for ordered lift by draping in safeguard lingo. The more solid her shine, the tougher to buck or sway. But Claudine flubbed key, trailed Tyler and his code twist to my threshold, gifting direct proof of tech sham. Wed to Grant spec bonds and Aaron's law chops, we clutch stack on order deceit. For days to her mark, but the tick flipped. No dash to bogus bills. Dash to bear a crime web ere it swelled to gut more kin. Thursday dusk hit with that buzz that jitters your grip mid-file sort. The state roots panel probe convened at the Shire Hall, lifting our turf tussle to true formal turf. Aaron flagged Claudine's prep for counterstack, but Zilch braced for the throng mobbing the hall steps. 2 brigs lined the stairs, Mike snagging yarns from drivers from far shires drawn to eye the clash. Chatter flew via feeds and rags on the Pine Ridge line row, pulling turf right backers, Roots Gar crews, and kin who'd weathered like HOA squeezes. In the chamber, air crackled taut. The 5-seat Roots board perched high, eyeing nigh 80 souls. Claudine claimed front pew with Tyler and 3 unknowns, synced in pro garb hauling twin kits. They evoked a law squad geared for siege. Helen claimed seats aft me, Vice gripping the tin case with her man's gauge bonds. Grant staked rear, spec sheaf knee balanced. Aaron paced us like a field chief pre-clash, tweaking our drop plan finale. Board lead Rebecca Morrison summoned order, with a crisp clip of one versed in hordes of kin probes. Tonight we vet Pine Ridge Homeowners Association's line tweak bids and weigh pushbacks from touch turf holders. Claudine rose for her slot with the fluid command of a podium vet. She glided to the stand, slate synced to beam. Each beat cool weighed. Her deck bloomed screen wide, and I grasped her poise route. Pine Ridge HOA model's green zone bloom. She kicked off, beaming flyover snaps spanning half a century. Our Roots Guard drive shields vintage holds while locking wise system builds, aiding the full spread. Her panes gleamed pro, packed with graphs tracing value jumps, lift schedules, and resident raves on HOA helm. All rang true, full, persuasive. Sans grasp of her twist trades. Her pitch would have hooked me. The holds at stake gained big from zone system stakes. Claudine pressed, splashing Tyler's stats screen large. Lanes, lines, aid crews, green shields need steady coin flows to hold elite bars our folks crave. She tapped to a pane framing my hold with kin vintage pads. All tagged zone Roots gems needing synced helm. The nudge rang loud. Lone rule of vintage sites sparked helm snags only pro HOA watch could smooth. Mr. Grant's turf embodies the Roots horde thriving under zone sync, Claudine noted, wheeling my way with a pity smile for the unversed in her lore. Vintage revival demands skill, steady mend. Zone weave that lone keepers oft fumble solo. Tyler surged to unpack his cut, slab to beam in seamless glide. His stats flared pain bright, buffed with shire marks and form flash masking as true. Turf rating codes, plain show strain from lone vintage holds, Tyler unpacked. Jabbing graphs, pegging my holds drag on kin systems. Sync to set HOA helm yields thrift fixes for all hands. And I eyed board faces as Tyler spun, clocking their hook on his pro drop and seeming savvy. Sans Grant spec probe or Tyler's code twist no. His case rang sound, even vital. When Claudine reclaimed the stand for rap, she'd cast Pine Ridge as Roots champs battling lone turf waste. Zone sync guards vintage, hold sharper than lone rule, she rapped. Our levy frame locks, steady coin for the guard toil, these key builds merit. Then our cue. Aaron hit the stand with the even sureness of a law vet dropping thick yarns to dow crowds. Grateful for space to float a counter view on Pine Ridge's line tweak bids, he launched. Our dig unearths big gaps, twixt their bids and your bonds. He beamed Helen's prime gauge charts screen wide, folios tracing firm lines to the 40s. Her kits polish modern clash with his authentic, your heft hit stark, swift. These form the Dawn Shire gauge bonds, setting turf lines here, Aaron unpacked. They plain show the pad's Pine Ridge stakes were never in build plans, never inked HOA packs, never drew zone aid warranting levy hits. Grant claimed next, unpacking his spec probe with a crisp tech bite that once prized him to Pine Ridge pre-fraud flash. Stats from Pine Ridge's Tech Ace Pack Big Code Twists, he stated, beaming twin views of Tyler's cut and true Shire stacks. Live system probe shows these pads crave nil zone aid, drag zilch on build webs, sit firm beyond true HOA pale. Grant's unpacked chip Tyler's tech bids methodic, bearing the code, twist tricks forging fake rating bars. When Helen eased to stand, chamber hushed absolute. 82 and pasting grace. She bore the heft of your verity. I inked the Dawn Pine Ridge HOA pact in 75. She rang clear past years. I also okayed the desk tweaks birthing the sham. She hefted the tin and fan snaps, inks, charts tracing Pine Ridge's stealth creep. Claudine Renshaw coaxed my mark on line shifts. She dubbed plain desk polish. I trusted for zone good. Instead, aided her roof thefts. Helen's yarn spun 20 turns, chronicling Claudine's beat. Scout air holds, twist desk flows, forge fake levy hooks for outlaw hits. Her stack rang full, intimate, crushing. Board's queries honed on line tweak tech, levy sway law, bond backs for both pitches. Claudine's replies soured defensive as she flailed to square her deck with your stack. Tyler's tech guard buckled total when Grant pressed his code method. Pinned, Tyler copped to tuning rating perms and tweaking value bars for zone gain. Tech gloss veiling steady code warp. Post-wrap, Lead Morrison noted they'd sift all drop stacks and rule in 10 work turns. Her clip hinted our drops sparked grave doubts on Pine Ridge's creep bids. Strolling hall steps, I tasted the glow of truth laid to power wielders. Claudine cross steps sans my glance. Her once sure stance cracked brittle, a mask splintering under Verity's load. 3 days to her dawn mark, but tick lost bite. Verity rang open, and Claudine Renshaw's sham line realm teetered to fall. The buzz hit true 10 work turns post-roots board clash, per Morrison's clock. I mended North Pane seals when an odd line flared my cell, blooming to week's prime ring. Mr. Grant, Rebecca Morrison from State Roots Board. Phoning to share our cruise, full accord on Pine Ridge HOA line tweak bids. I shelved tools, pacing to the galley slab where I'd stack my bond hoard tidy. Ears open. Board rules Pine Ridge Homeowners Association hold zilch true sway over the touch pads. All line tweaks filed past 5 years voided. Dawn 1975 lines reinstated. Ease stab keen, sudden, like breath post crush. Levy fallout. All hits rooted in sham line bids ruled null. More, we're flagging our stack to state law chief for crime sham probe. Post click, I pinged Aaron to split the win. His take matched hopes. Pro glee laced with real thrill at wide ripples. This carves a bar shielding turf holder statewide, he said. But key for you. Claudine's web stone dead. Next morn fetched near dream dispatches. Grant rang. Tyler's code warp outfit raided by Fed sleuths chasing steady raiding scams over shires. Tyler nabbed on wire sham, rig crimes, plot to clip turf holders. Probe sparked from our yarn Grant unpacked, but they unearthed like webs in 12 shires. Tyler's crew peddled fake rating aid to HOAs region-wide. That noon, I wheeled to Helen's to split face-to-face. She cracked door with a guarded hope of one schooled and letdowns, but her cast flipped full when I spilled the board's call. Kin pads reclaimed? She probed. Aaron's on it. State law chief vets all Tyler touch cases. Slow grind, but true shot at flipping force dumps. Helen drew me for brew, and we spun an hour o'er her man's gauge bonds anew. Now not frantic proof, but cleared your verity. His cut's sharpness had spared not lone my hold, but scores more maybe. My man beam, she said, latching the tin soft. He held straight toil forges its guard. Ne'er grass till now. 2 turns on. Town rag splashed Pine Ridge probe front. Head screamed. HOA sham bared. State hunt unmasks shire spanning turf lift loop. Peace unpacked Claudine's air hunt beat. Tyler's tech warp aid. Wide HOA reckon hits. But prime kick struck opening morn rag to Claudine's cuff shop page 3. Nabbed on sham, plot, rack, turf rights breach under law cloak. Bond 200 grand. Fed law hounds I'd extra counts from Shire Web. Counts grave for long lock if guilty. Wire sham solo 20 Fed turns. Rights breach tax 10 more. For one who'd spun life on clout and shine. Open shame likely stung as deep as law bite. Aaron buzzed Eve with rap note. Pine Ridge HOA court dissolved. State helms true zone tasks while sorting dawn build pads. Other board kin? Most swear blind to Claudine's webs. Probe will sift truth share, but Claudine ran lean up with Tyler's sole keymate. 3 weeks post-Roots board call. State law chief's missive landed formal. Pine Ridge HOA ordered 1.2 mil payback to touched holders. Shares pegged by log sham harms. My cut, 65 grand, pat the levy Claudine pressed, plus bloom and law bites. Twist pure. Her grab birthed the coin, lash she'd slung my way. But coin paled to point. My hold rang mine clear, title crisp, no HOA cloud. State Roots boarded, even tagged it guarded vintage, meaning fresh build pushes face extra law walls. Wide wake hit unforeseen, when few dawned. Aaron shared turf right crews, tapped our yarn as mold for Buckinghamshire HOA bids nationwide. Your bonds, tech probe, open yarn mix forged a copy-ready play for kin in like squeezes. Grant launched a gig aiding holders log lines and buck iffy HOA bids. Helen's yarn on Dawn Gauge bonds sparked elder locals to sift kin stacks for true line proof. Prime, State House mulled fresh watch on HOA line tweaks. Pine Ridge bared desk watch holes, letting ordered sham run, unchecked years, 0.6 moons post Claudine's cuff. I brushed finale hue on Grandpa's foredeck rails when wheels hit my forecourt. Instant, got clenched with scar of unbid guests hauling law woes. But this round, mere kin with we ones, lured by hold lore, keen to eye the revived gem. We caught your HOA feud in the rag, the sire said. Lads probe local urine class. Tutor nudged us to scout zone vintage spots. I led M through, unpacking men flow, and Grandpa's 22 build yarns. Kiddos lit on hewn joists and rock hearth humming century true. As they rolled off, I clocked a shift past law close. Hold felt altered, not mere spared, but hailed. What dawned as root threat wound up spotlit for wide Kinworth. That dusk I perched foredeck, eyeing glow wane o'er Grandpa's would stand, tasting the still glow post True Guard's hold. Clash done. Right reigned, verity triumphed. Some men's drag longer, but merit every beat. Spring bloomed swift that spin, hauling fresh zip that cast winter's grinds as far echoes. 3 moons since Claudine's cuff and turf round my hold reshaped beyond season flips. Where Pine Ridge's sham creep once loomed o'er free pads, a true kin weave took root. Dawn tag right hit on a bright April morn as dogwoods unfurled. State Roots Chief Patricia Wells trekked from seat to hand, the shield slab warding my hold from fresh build crush, but the dew felt kin hail o'er gov gig. Helen B. Crowd, bunching spring posies for the new brass mark. 83 and pace slacker, yet gaze held the eased spark of cleared conscience. Remorse o'er okaying Claudine's sham tweaks had bent to turf right push county-wide. Your grandpa'd beam, she shared as we eyed Chief Wells' primer spiel. He framed this to endure, and you locked it. Grant edged the pack rim, spec sheaf swap for lens snapping the dew for his fresh turf right feed. His gig had swelled past hopes, kin from 6 shires, tapping aid to buck iffy HOA bids. Aaron motored from his dawn law den, now lone turf right turf. Pine Ridge wind stamped his rep for tackling, ordered sham, and clinching. His slate now backed 12 kin bucking like webs o'er 3 seats. Chief Wells unpacked guarding vintage pads and perils of desk twists hitting lone rights, but prime drop landed close. Pine Ridge yarn sparked State House doing fresh watch on HOA line tweaks. She rang live now. Any HOA sway stretch needs open forums, free gauges, Roots Chief nod. Cheers bore the heft of kin statewide, now law barred from Claudine style ordered lifts. Post right, pack bent personal. Helen lined a root share, beckoning neighbors to swap kin pad yarns and guard snags. Mrs. Patterson flashed snaps of her kin spread, once-eyed by another HOA creep. Your clash lent us spine to rise, she said. They bailed instant we sighted Pine Ridge. Tom Rodriguez, whose air nook drawn like levees in Twinshire, had clinched via our law play. Aaron's frame spared my kin's nook, he shared. Lads'll no great-grandsire shed. But keenest hit when Laura Hayes edged up. My age-ish, she stood with the guarded grace of one schooled by loss to doubt clout voices. Buying Grand's pad next moon, she said. Vacant since their fade, kin couldn't swing with HOA hits. But post-Pine Ridge hunt, those hits rang sham too. She flashed pics of a wee nook with handstone walls and 6-decade plots. Paybacks cleared tax bites and law tabs. My girls bedding, where I summered we. Yarns like Laura's bloomed as state law chief's probe swelled. Tyler's outfitted tangled in webs hitting 47 pads or 8 shires. Full payback top 3.2 mil. Not lone coin mend, but root guard once deemed gone. As noon eased, I stood solo foredeck, scanning Grandpa's wood. Brass tags snagged late glow, its law lingo locking hold guard true, set. Helen joined porch, easing to amended with seat. Been mulling what your grandpa'd spin on this spotlight, she said. Quiet sort. Likely'd flush at the do, but reckon he'd dig the spot safe for kin ahead. Safe from Claudine kin, least. Helen's tone packed the glow of right reined, though I suppose grabbers always lurk. We held easy hush, eyeing shade stretch o'er turf turned hub of wide yarn on kin guard, and rising to ordered cloud abuse. Got a gift, Helen said, fishing in husk. My man's note on this pad from 68, when builders pressed your grandpa to flip. And the note unpacked hold frame, craft grade. How it had woven, with wild lay o'erlord it. Your grandpa told my man he framed this not loan for self, but all kin turns craving turf tie. Helen unpacked. He held prime bequest weren't coin or deeds, but grasped some gems merit guard fights. As Helen rapped read, I grasped this clash's core, moons to dawn clear. Hadn't spun round 65 grand sham hits, or loan, sparing my hold from Claudine Webb's. Bout grasping guard's true ring. Not loan old frame upkeep, but locking loan right to shield what counts gainst exploiters, twisting law for gain. Hold it stand past my fade, law barred, and tagged your key. But prime, bar weed setted shield kin in like threats. As sun sank woods, spilling slow shades o'er mended deck, where grandpa dreamed this spot, I tasted still beam of precious spared, and guard laws toughened. Clash wrapped. Kin tougher, verity forged its whole guard. Some roots rise from plank and rock. Prime roots rise from bars outlasting lone frames. One turn on, I perch same deck this trek sparked. But all rings fresh. Hold gleams twin hewn joists, twin rock stack, twin would scan. But I via shifted gaze, grasping not lone grandpa's frame, but what guard means past self. Brass roots tags patinaed to fit, like dawn wed to hold lore. Guests sit steady, some by tagpole, others by turf right yarn headlining statewide. Prime chats with kin like Tom Rodriguez, nook spared by our bar, or Laura Hayes, kin nook reclaimed post-sham grab. These ain't lone law wins. Kin passing routes, 'cause we proved ordered lift halts. Aaron's dens swelled past dreams. Backs 43 kin o'er 6 seats, all bucking Claudine-style twists. Law frame we'd forged nationwide turf, right cruise tap, and law dens teach our yarn. Grant's gigs grown past HOA bucks. Work state watch to ink fresh bars on turf rating checks, locking Tyler-style code hides tough. Helen marked 84 last moon. I lined we do it hold, beckoning clash crew. She hauled her man's gauge kit, Dawn tools logging true lines, and we spun M to plot her yard stretch plan. My man held true gauge forges, hold verity, she shared mid-toil. Glad his kit spared past line logs. State law chief's rap report log Tyler Webb full. 47 pads o'er 8 shires snared via fake ratings. Full payback top 4.8 mil, not lone coin lift, but root mend once lost firm. Claudine drew 12 fed turns on wire sham, plot, rights breach counts. Parole shot post 8, but her turf trade ban's gone forever. Tyler copped 4 for fed aid. Wide wake swells. State House inked full HOA mend law mandating open forums for line tweaks, free rating checks. Must show cash ties, twixt HOAs and builder crews. Like bids brew in 12 more seats. But shifts I'm keenest ain't big law halls. Personal ties bloomed from right clash. Helen and I brew Tuesdays, swapping local lore and plotting route stroll were brewing. Grant drops when near, true mates now. Hoods flipped. Where Pine Ridge creep loomed o'er free pads, true kins bloomed. Swap line 10 yarns, sync true lifts aiding all, back each on stray gavasks. Mrs. Patterson lines, moon kin pad owner meets, sharing men tricks and guard snags. All Pine Ridge claimed but missed. True kin sync prizing loan rights while weaving aid. Last moon, mail from Dawn Pine Ridge board kin apologized for not probing Claudine bids keen, thanking for bearing verity pre more harm. Reminder, most in these webs ain't mean. Trusting sorts snared by savvy exploiters, twisting goodwill. Looking back, I grasp guard past old frame tend or line locks. True guard craves watch. Not lone gainst rot, but gainst exploiters, twisting shield webs, for what counts. Grandpa framed this to span kin turns with skills and stock for hold. But prime passed down weren't frame. Grasp some gems merit guard fights. Even when fight calls fresh chops and woes he ne'er dreamed. Hold will stand past my gone, law barred and prized by air tending it. But hope they ere grasp guard's live flow, each turn rising to woes their watch berths. And there it wraps. Sun-dipping twin woods grandpa-eyed, hold standing hush, unbowed. What spark dread bent to proof verity outlasts clout, and plain kin, bucking bend, can shift full webs. Maybe prime moral. Some clashes merit the scars, specially when bucking not lone self, but all ahead. If you're still tuned, spill how this yarn hit you. And if it hooked, tap that thanks to fuel this feed's bloom.